Hi, Dan. Happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday to you. Friday the 13th.
It is. I actually didn't even notice that until just now.
It'll all go well.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. Dan, you're the National Multimedia Studio Manager for Leo Burnett's in Sydney. Leo's it's such an iconic agency, which I believe started in New York during the Depression.
Yeah. So I think he originally kicked it off, I think it was 1935 in Chicago, and then turned up on Madison Avenue not long after.
And how does it feel to work for an agency with such a long history and strong creative genes like that?
It's good. I suppose it's funny because, I came from, I did work in bigger sort of agencies, and then I went and worked at a bunch of smaller ones. But I think probably the thing that stands out about Leo Burnett is probably the people, more so than like the history is, it's a rich history that everybody kind of knows about. But I think it's the people that are there currently. That's the real sort of gold that's there, I think.
And so what was your personal creative journey that led you to working for Leo's?
I started off sort of straight out of college. I got a job at Clemenger. So I was working out of Clems as a studio junior. I had a lovely studio manager, Jodie Holmes, who I still see to this day. And she was a really good boss. And I was not a great employee, and she really she really steered me right.
Big shout out to her then.
yeah, she was great. Everyone there was great, actually. Her and Andy Atkinson. And Baz Beckley. There's three really good people. But I started off there, and I was there for about 4 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. And just got like a real taste of what a big agency was like. And then obviously, with big agencies, and especially Clems tended back then to sort of, it was the tail end of kind of the advertising golden age, where there was, long lunches and, a bar fridge that you could just sort of access kind of whenever.
Yeah, I missed the 90s.
Yeah. And that sort of evaporated. And then I went and worked at some smaller places. So, like sort of packaging places and point of sale places, as a designer / finished artist. And I suppose they're kind of the jobs where you kind of cut your teeth on being a designer. You kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work. But I think ultimately I just kind of realized I wasn't a particularly good designer. I was fine, but I was never going to be a great designer. So then job popped up. I sort of moved back into FA when I came to Leo Burnett. And that was nice because, sort of very, very high quality product that they sort of put out there. They're working on premium brands. It was nice to go from, doing some, stuff that sort of no one would see to stuff that everyone would see and would kind of follow you around. But yeah, came back to Leo Burnett and then kind of moved into that studio manager role, and then now looking after the guys in Sydney and the guys in Melbourne. So that's kind of it.
Here you are.
Quickly. Yeah,
and
here I am.
So what does a national multimedia studio manager do exactly?
It just means, so I suppose what we've kind of identified is we've got talent in, and this is partly because of the pandemic, but everyone working at home, we realized that there's no real two offices. There's a nice Sydney office and a Melbourne office. It's kind of the one agency with two doors. So why not leverage everybody's skill sets and pile them all together? So I suppose the national part is there's just guys in Melbourne, there's guys in Sydney. And the multimedia part is we've worked really hard with the guys to make everyone kind of integrated. So we no longer have print people or digi people. We have just people that can do a bit of everything. And that doesn't mean you do everything perfect. Like we do have people that can, but for the most part, you just need to be proficient enough in each discipline that you can kind of get through the day. So we've got, in my team, we've got sort of 3 FAs that can do print, animated out of home, digital banners, and then we've got guys that have got front end dev, like dedicated front end dev. Another bloke who's pretty good at doing a bit of everything, including a little bit of coding, retouches, and then like pure designers. So there's a team of 8 in total that sort of knock around and get everything done.
So by multimedia then, just so I understand you, you just mean that it's the unicorn that we're asked to go to market to find all the time that literally can work across every medium.
Yeah, that's kind of it. And look, I think the thing is, what we sort of realized, and I was from a print background, and we kind of realized that that stuff was disappearing. So the biggest hurdle was getting the print guys up to speed. And I suppose the way we did that was we just invested time in them. So we just found those opportunities where they could work on something that was relatively simple, and then it became more complex. And before you know it, you've got print people who are banner builders and understand how to get in there and play with After Effects. And it kind of began to future-proof them as well, because I think the reality is if you have good talent, you know they're not going to stay forever. And when they leave you, you kind of want them to go off and find a role where they're going to be happy and that they're going to be able to continue to succeed. So yeah, that's what we've sort of aimed to do. And so far we've been successful.
Does multimedia include motion designers, animators, videographers?
Yeah, so we've also got a content team, Connect, and I used to be a bigger part of that, not so much now. And those guys, that was video editors, content creators, animators. We've got those guys as well.
The big job that you have.
Yeah, it can be. I think I think the thing that makes it it's made easier by the people we've got. So I've got a good team, and I think we've built that relationship now where we all kind of trust each other and we're all happy to help each other. So yeah, at times it can be a big job, but for the most part, it's an enjoyable one.
I'm curious about the sort of tech that you might use to run the projects through your studio. Is there anything that you've implemented in the last couple of years?
Yeah, so from a resourcing point of view, we use Trello. And then I myself sort of keep a Google Doc where I keep track of hours spent on jobs and, you know, what everybody's doing. But then I suppose the most recent thing we've been using to share work is Zyflow. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's an online platform to share your work and mark up your work, and you can share it with your clients and they can see what you're doing. That's probably, we're in the infancy of that, but I think that'll be our big game changer in terms of getting feedback and sharing work.
What's it
finding
called?
Efficiencies there. Zyflow.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I suppose Trello is the one that we sort of live in.
We do the same. We love it.
Yeah. It's funny, like my partner, she runs a team as well, and she works in Mondays, and she looks at it and she's like, oh, it's not as pretty, but you know, that's that's just one of those things. I don't mind it.
I was having a look around the website, and it basically describes the agency as a Humankind behavior change company. Tell us what that means exactly and what it means for you.
I suppose like the big thing is it's that push to sort of move away from being for lack of a better term, a heartless advertising agency. And I think the Humankind part of Leo Burnett is they want to create ideas that change people's behaviors. So there's the quote, what helps people helps business, is something that sort of echoes through Leo Burnett. So it's about creating ideas and using technologies that are going to make people's lives better. That's the big goal with ideas that they do. And that's not to say that there's not, you know, stuff where it's, for lack of a better term, churn and burn, because there is stuff that's just not going to have that lens across it. But for those opportunities where there is the opportunity to put that lens across it. That's what our creative department does. They have a sliding scale that you've probably also seen on the website.
Yeah, I did.
And they kind of, yeah. And so they've got the GPC that they sort of work to, and they try and aim for that sweet spot of around, 7 and ideally an 8 ball, which is like a behavior changing, world changing idea. So that's kind of where the guys, they put that lens across all their ideas and they aim for that sweet spot.
Yeah, it's really smart. Multimedia, I think it's an area that we've witnessed exponential growth, in particular in the last, I would say, 7 years. What roles have been the game changers, do you think, and where is it headed?
I think where it's headed is automation. That's kind of the thing that we see, and we probably need to catch up a little bit there. But I think automation is where it's going to be. It's having creative that can sort of change depending on so many factors, and yeah, I don't know the roles. I suppose it comes down to dev, right? So it's having people that can actually build the stuff and having creative teams that understand it, which is probably that nice little Goldilocks zone that you need to get to, a dev that understands creatives and creatives that understand a dev. But yeah, I think that's kind of where it's heading. Yeah, automation.
Absolutely. So what are the skills of a multimedia designer? What traits do they have to have over and above what a more traditional print designer would have?
I feel like it's pretty similar, right? I've found that people from a print background kind of adapt to other forms of media maybe a little bit quicker than sort of digi-designers going back the other way. And I think it's mostly because print people have lived in a world of specs and spec sheets sort of all their life. So I suppose it's the same stuff that we sort of pop up. Like you want a design eye, you want an eye for detail. And then and it sounds terrible to say, you want to be like pixel perfect. So you want to be right there in the details, making sure things are like spot on. And then I suppose it's beyond that, it's kind of having the attitude that it's not going to be right the first time. I think that's probably the thing we see from new starters that makes them most successful, is realizing the quicker you realize that stuff is never going to be right when you first do it, or even if a design looks perfect the first time, it's not going to be perfect. Someone's going to want that red part blue. I suppose that's the stuff that we see as making someone successful, being able to get knocked down and get up and do it again. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. It really is eye for detail, resilience, and willingness to actually work on yourself and learn. That's probably the big one. We all want to be employable for as long as possible, so you've got to continue to want to learn things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're working in a very creative environment, and agency land is often not for the faint-hearted. Do you feel that the pressures stifle or actually enhance the creative thinking?
It's interesting, right? Because I probably don't have too much to do with that creative thinking. And it's more the creatives themselves, so your art directors and copywriters, that are probably feeling that pressure. But I suppose from what I observe, they kind of feed off each other. So there is like that camaraderie where they're all sort of in the trenches trying to make good work together. Yeah, I don't know. I suppose the way it would affect us in the studio is you often want to, you don't want technical ability to get in the way of a good idea. So it's about giving your creative teams what they want, and getting what's in their heads out on paper or up on a screen. That's probably the pressure more than actually coming up with the creative concepts. And I think, I feel like we get there most of the time. But yeah, that's probably the way I'd answer that. I think it's just, yeah, the pressure is more so on those creative teams. They're the ones in an agency that are taking all the hits.
Yeah, for sure. And look,
And strategy
there's plenty
as
of
well.
us. There's plenty of us that work, that do our best work under pressure. How do you keep yourself updated and creatively relevant with modern design trends, you and your team?
I'm personally pretty terrible at this. And I suppose that's, look, and one of the things I've realized is since moving into more of a manager role rather than a design role, and I know that we put on all different hats at all times, but I think for myself, the things I look for in design is just like kind of like the laws of design, and I look at, are things, is there good alignment, is there good contrast in your design, have we got hierarchy within your design, we look at, is it balanced and there's some symmetry, but is there also like a little bit of tension with that balance? I think it's like those old sort of rules that you kind of can put across any design, and designers will probably roll their eyes when I say this, but I think the look and feel changes, but I think like the rules kind of stay the same, and it's similar with typography as well. You can pretty quickly look at something and realize whether it looks correct or not, and admittedly, I think care in type is slowly sort of sadly disappearing a little bit. The days of having typographers in an agency is kind of gone. But I think that's kind of, for me, what I look for in design. But the guys themselves, they're very clued up. There's lots of Adobe talks that go on that people are watching. There's lots of blogs now. There's so much stuff on Instagram that people follow. There's plenty of places to get your design sort of fix. But yeah, I really just concentrate on making sure that the guys are good and the work's getting done, and that we're working well. I do neglect my own design research.
Leo Burnett is, they're renowned for producing some iconic campaigns over the years. What are the projects that you're most proud of, and why?
There's probably two, and the first one you've probably seen, or it's starting to win quite a few awards, and that's Suncorp One House. So that really is like everything that they talk about with humankind thinking. One House really sort of epitomizes that. It's really an idea that goes about making things better for people. So if you haven't seen it, it's the guys went away and they sort of found a way to make an indestructible house that combats all of Australia's weather issues. So it's fire resistant, it's flood resistant, it's hurricane proof, and cyclone proof, and it's you can hit it with anything and it kind of stands up, and it'll still be there at the end. And I think with sort of our changing climate, that sort of thinking is really cool, and it's really nice to see a brand like Suncorp take a punt on something like that. And the creatives like Marika Spain and Eric, they did it. Spain, and Eric, they did an awesome job on it. Like really good thinking, and then all the way through the agency, like Strat guys, the suits for selling it all in, the producers for making it. That campaign is awesome, and it's being rewarded. And then the other one that's probably less well known is a job done by two of our junior creatives, Megan and Dan, who worked on a job for Minderoo Foundation, and it was about the exploitation of young women. And that was just if you haven't seen it, have a look. It's a little bit touching, and it was just, I don't know, it's just awesome when you see young creatives do something cool. So that was a nice one. they're probably the two campaigns that sort of jump out at me, and I'm like, oh, that's nice, and I'm happy to have like a very small part in those. So yeah, those two.
And it's nice to hear of the gender diversity in that team. It's a hot topic at the moment with our clients, looking for that gender diversity, which is still really difficult in agency land. But looking around at your senior management team, it's a fairly even split.
Yeah, we've got lots. I think Leo Burnett has always, well, since I've been there, it's always seemed to have a pretty even split. Like we've got women in very high power roles. You've got Emma as our CEO, and you've got Kath as our head of strategy, and we've got KTT as our CFO, and you've got Amanda running Suncorp, and yeah, it is really quite even. And before that we had Melinda was running the company for 30 something years. So it's really, really strong. And I shouldn't forget Kate down in Melbourne as well. So there's lots and lots, there's lots and lots of women. And look, I will say, as a father to a little girl, and partner to a very what's a nice way of describing Ange? Strong, as a of a strong woman. It's really good to see that, and it doesn't it doesn't happen by accident. It's because they put in the work, and they really, all those people are good leaders, and that's reflected in their teams and the work they do. But yeah, the gender split at Leo Burnett is very, very even.
Yeah, it is. No, look, it's a credit. It's a credit to the business for sure. Dan, it's been wonderful spending time with you today. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much or talk too much.
No, it was very, very interesting. And I'm going to go and have a look at that second campaign, because I haven't seen that one. I'd seen the first one, but not the second one. I'm going to do that
grab
now.
Your tissues. Yeah, you might.
Okay. All right. Look, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon.
No, thank you. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.